I'm not sick or struck dumb, or don't you know a kick when you see one can't quit. We're not done, we're gonna kick till the next one.
Hello one and all, and welcome to The Kick. I am your host, Nolan Pfeiffer, and this is an Odyssey-based podcast series on the Now Playing Network. Today is not the end of our journey. We have another episode next week, but we are focusing on a movie about the end of Homer's Odyssey. 2024's The Return adapts the last half of the epic poem, starting with Odysseus washing up on the shores of Ithaca. So no other islands, no Troy, no misadventures, just a very beat up 60-year-old man navigating his trauma and the suitors trying to take over his kingdom and marry his grieving wife. This is a movie that Ben Ferguson and I talked about a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Chris Nolan's The Odyssey. Neither of us had seen it. We'd heard good things. I remember it getting some press, mostly for Ralph Fiennes' workout routine. But it felt like one we had to include in the series if possible, given its recency, good reviews, and being an explicit adaptation of The Odyssey, so close to Nolan's. The Return is directed by Umberto Pasolini, who is, of course, not that Pasolini, but the guy who made The Full Monty in the late 90s. Ralph Fiennes is Odysseus, Juliette Binoche is Queen Penelope, Charlie Plummer is Telemachus. And with me today to discuss The Return, one of my oldest friends, who has for a long time escaped ever being on a podcast with me. But I got him today. I'm trapping him on this island for a recording that could take 7 to 10 years. He is a scholar and editor, and the kind of friend who in college would let you know if there was a new translation of the Odyssey coming out. Tim Lundy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, buddy. You want to tell this story about how mean I was to you about a translation of the Odyssey?
I was mean to you, and I was a little disappointed upon reflection that it wasn't Emily Wilson's, because I thought that would naturally segue. No. But the one we're talking about came out in like 2011, maybe.
I must have been.
Yeah, so we can turn this into like a Marin style podcast where we start with the beef like right away. Our friendship mostly good. You think that's what I was fishing for?
Want.
Okay, so
what are your
Tim and I have known each other since we were 6. I would say our friendship's been mostly pretty good or whatever, but this
up
one
until that time. This one time.
When we were in Kansas City and we were at like a Barnes and Noble in the plaza, and I don't know, we were tired, we're hungry or something. You said this is a new translation of the Odyssey, and I was like, who gives a shit about that? And you were like, first of all, I do, and second of all, like a lot of people do. You're a dunce. What was the deal with that translation? Was it like was it a good one? I have no idea
what it was. Probably not.
Yes. So it didn't fucking matter. I was right.
I feel like I was probably a little bit mean to you about that, because I wanted to emphasize that I think it's very important to keep translating the Odyssey. However, I'm sure that individual translation was not important.
So really, history does agree with me. Who gives a shit about that one?
Or something that is translated every year again. It's, yeah.
Is that true? It's like there's a new translation every year?
I don't know if that's literally true. It's probably one of the most translated books. It's up there. And certainly if you like go looking for editions, we'll find dozens and dozens of English translations that you could look at.
I was just being snotty about something I didn't give time or credence or understanding to. But this does make me want to ask then, what is so standout about Emily Wilson's 2017 translation?
It is, well, I mean, part of what it's just one you've heard about because it got so much attention, and it got a lot of attention because she's very good at talking about the Odyssey, and I think was very effective at calling people's attention to different elements of the poem that they might not have thought about before, and it is a very good translator and kind of poet in her own right. So I think that those things combined, and she was the first woman to translate the Odyssey. But also, she's pretty obsessed with the Odyssey. She's really that I think if we end up talking about the response to the Christopher Nolan movie, that I think is a part of it.
Maybe we should just. Will people hang on? Will people hang on? Hang on, guys. Well, because I want to know what you thought of the Christopher Nolan movie too. Like 2 weeks ago, you were like, "I think I'm good," and then
it got popular, and I had to see it.
Yeah, it was like, and you're like, "I like the Chainsmokers now. I like everything that's." I wear Nike clothes. But I guess I want to know both. These are two big topics to smash together, but what did you think of it, and what did you make of her beef with it?
I had a great time. I enjoyed it a lot. I think what I told you initially was that I wasn't sure that Christopher Nolan's approach and kind of strength as a director would play to the things that I'm most interested in the Odyssey. And I think that...
Can I interrupt you real fast? What are those things? What are you most interested in?
We'll definitely get into it, because these are things that I think that actually in the return, some of them come out more clearly.
Sweet.
But there were definitely things in the Nolan Odyssey that I was like, oh, this is something I'm quite interested in this poem that he's also clearly interested in. And other things like, well, yes, understandably, a filmmaker who makes movies on the scale that he does is not going to be interested in some of these other things. Anyway, had a very good time. Happy to talk more about what I liked about it and what I disliked about it. With the Wilson, I really think that my impression reading her critique of it, I mean, she was too hard on it, I think. There were things in there where she would like I think I read that before I saw the movie, and so I went in expecting certain things to kind of be totally absent, and then I was like, oh, she might just not have really been generous enough in looking for some of these things, which I do think were there.
I suppose if you're Chris Nolan, citing an academic and a translation is like, it's like from him, it's like a total compliment.
Yeah,
but then
right.
If you're the academic and you don't like what happened, it's like, well, don't talk about me. I'm not part of this.
Yeah, or you feel like you need to nitpick more because you're really, I don't know, when things get closer to things that you really feel strongly about and think and have advocated, then you start to be like, well, that's not what I meant at all. Of course, this is totally different. You're twisting this. So I think that it's a sign maybe of actually the influence of her translation more than Nolan being I don't know. I don't think he was rejecting a lot of what she was doing, even if he was clearly doing his own thing.
I feel like some of her gripes are just like she didn't like that it was a movie, a big giant movie, and that he focused on the look of the movie. I mean, he was very focused on the aesthetics of what he was trying to create. And then I also do think that pacing could drive people a little nuts, as it did me at certain parts. I was most interested maybe in her thing of like he was so into Zeus's law, but the text did not necessarily follow all the way through with that, or like map logically in terms of the fundamental breaking of Zeus's law is like delivering the horse to Troy.
So I think
and I get that that's in the sense of it being a war crime, sure, and a dastardly trick, but it is not as though, as she said, the Trojans were their host necessarily.
The concept in Greek culture or in Homer that is underlying the idea that Nolan invents of Zeus's law, this idea in the Odyssey of xenia in Greek, or hospitality, a kind of like culture of, gift exchange among rulers and mutual hospitality that then maybe gets extended further to include to be kind of a broader ethical principle for people. I think that one of the things that Wilson is actually interested in her translation of the Odyssey is suggesting that kind of like cultural value, like many cultural values, can cut both ways, that you can use that in order to oppress people, or in order to when you come across people who aren't part of the cultural system that includes people who respect this God and this kind of law and this sort of code of hospitality, then you do, I think, what you see in the Nolan film, where you show up and you say, why didn't you give us any gifts? Why weren't you welcoming us as guests? Why did you make us have to like burn your village down and just take what we needed instead of giving it to us the way you're supposed to? And so that, I think that part of what she maybe wanted to get at was that the Nolan film comes back to Zeus's law as a kind of ethical principle that it sees as being lost in the world with the fall of Troy. And I think she would want to say, this is a kind of ethical principle or cultural practice that shows us maybe the limits of when Greek culture comes up against, or when Odysseus comes up against people who are not a part of his culture. Does the kind of hospitality rule become a way to an excuse, basically, for saying, well, these people don't follow Zeus's law, therefore anything goes in terms of taking stuff from them because they should have offered it to us anyway. Something like that. Whereas I think in the Nolan movie, that would be, oh, this is the violation of hospitality to behave in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something actually that I meant to talk about in the episode that covered this, but I never got around to. The notion of the sea people, which they're, on Ithaca, they're like worried about. I can't remember if they explicitly refer to them as pirates, but it seems to be like this harbinger for the end of this civilized age. Is there a historical or literary precedent for like those are real people? Or I wasn't sure if that was a literary device where it's like, well, the marauding veterans coming home are the sea people, or this is just a kind of more of a symbol.
The sea people is a kind of old, outdated archaeological, historical kind of conversation about basically at the end of the Bronze Age, all around the Mediterranean, so in Greece, but also in like Turkey and the Near East and Egypt. There's this kind of big upheaval, and a lot of like cultures and huge forms of human organization that had existed seemed to kind of fall apart all at once. And so archaeologists try to figure out why that happened. And one prevailing theory for a while was that there's this mention of people from the sea in like an Egyptian inscription that for a while there was a thought, okay, there's some kind of invasion of this whole region by some kind of pirates or marauders or a group of people that destroyed all these old cultures and then replaced them or something. Now I think that the general theory is that there was probably some kind of chaos like that, but there was a lot of other things happening: earthquakes, climate change, people just generally, famines, and people stop wanting to pay taxes to local warlords and go off into the mountains.
Now that doesn't sound as good as sea people.
But the sea people, so it's interesting because it's a very kind of, I don't think it's the most up-to-date archaeological, historical explanation, but it does like fit really well, I think, with I mean, it's kind of well with the Wilson Odyssey, honestly. She's really interested in Odysseus as a pirate. You know, is he a pirate or is he a hero? And how do we tell the difference? And does he seem that way seem one way to one person and another way to another person? That was a really clear way, I feel like, in which the Nolan movie was picking up on something that she laid down.
Okay. Let's move to The Return. I would love for you to sprinkle in any more thoughts on Nolan's Odyssey as we go. I mean, I'm sure there will be ample side roads as we talk about this 2024 movie. So on the last episode, my sister was on for... You met my sister before?
Yes.
You ever had pasta at our house with my sister before? How many times do you think you've had pasta? Not even just like met Grace, which is in the hundreds, but had pasta in the vicinity of Grace.
I would say dozens, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's probably true. Grace said that to make an effective adaptation of the Odyssey, you got to pick like one or two things. Because if you try to do it all, it's going to be a mess. You can't wrap your head all the way around it. And it seemed to me as though The Return did what she said, which is like really starting with him, as I said, washing up on the shores of his home island and having a pretty, I'll say for me, it was a fairly coherent take on at least the character or how to characterize him. So what was effective or not effective for you about really like lopping off the first half of the story and starting with him back home in the suitors?
Our king Odysseus, the smartest of all the heroes. He led us for 10 years in the Trojan War, before his brilliant plan to build the great horse. The Trojans thought it was a gift and took it behind their walls. Then, out poured our soldiers. Odysseus led us to victory.
People love stories.
You were there?
I am Odysseus' wife.
Odysseus is dead.
Not to me.
There is no king. He sailed to Troy years ago. Took the best men with him.
All year, suitors have been turning up, waiting for his widow to choose a new husband to be king. Scoundrels, they're just here for your wealth. Look at this island. A wasteland. Gangs of thugs terrifying the people.
They need me alive. At least until I choose my husband.
Mother, we can't live with those savages anymore.
I will choose soon, when I finish my wedding cloak.
That woman's making a fool of you. Of us all.
I know who you are.
A tramp!
If I were free, I'd fight for what was mine. I'd fight for my people.
What will the people say when they see I have returned alone? That I led all their men to their deaths?
This land is ruined. I sacrificed it for him.
I mean, so you're pointing out that it's the second half of the poem,
which was a surprise
is interesting.
To me.
Yeah, right, exactly. People do not expect that.
I thought it would be like the last two books.
Exactly. And this is something that I think is really interesting about the way that the Odyssey exists in the kind of popular imagination, is that there's 24 books, right? And of those, 4 books are the ones that have the monsters and the adventures and the like pieces of the story that everyone remembers. So that's like a sixth of this entire poem is the part that has been so influential on fantasy and sci-fi and adventure storytelling. The rest of it is, I feel like, a poem that resembles The Return a lot more than the Nolan film, because it's very domestic. It's set almost entirely within different households. The characters are mostly like eating and drinking and taking baths and going to bed and telling stories, with then this episode of extreme violence at the end. And it's really a quite small story because it's about a single man and his family. And that is just not the like scale of story that you expect from an epic in the way that we have come to understand what an epic is and size. So that was something I think going into the Nolan, I was like, Nolan will want to make these kind of limited adventure stories huge and really awe-inspiring. And we'll put this at a massive scale.
Yeah.
And that captures kind of one side of this poem. But in some ways, the return is focused on what the bulk of the poem is about, which is much, much smaller scale, kind of interpersonal and more private conflicts, friendships, experiences between strangers and people who think that they're strangers but turn out to be long lost family members. Yeah.
Yeah. The return is like really explicitly a veteran's story. There are maybe 3 to 5 moments in the film, including when, Odysseus comes back to the hall disguised as a beggar and says, do you have any food for a veteran of the Trojan War? And they start to say how everybody says that, and then they kick him around and a fight ensues. But that leads to like several side conversations about like, you got to get over this war. And he's like, no, the war is here. It's everywhere I go. It's everywhere I look.
Yeah.
And it did make me think that another connection between the return and Nolan's version is they're pretty explicitly anti-war, or at least view the sacking of Troy as kind of a haunting historical inflection point. I wonder what do you make of that angle?
It's familiar in the sense that I think kind of the PTSD version of Homer has been a really powerful way into those poems, or probably since like the Vietnam War.
This reminds me so much of a Vietnam movie.
Yes, exactly. And there was some pretty influential books in the early 90s by this psychologist, Jonathan Shea, who wrote about the Iliad and the Odyssey in terms of his experience with veterans of Vietnam and how closely some of their experiences mapped on to experiences in those poems. So I think this is one actually pretty common way in which we kind of bring those poems closer to us. And yeah, it works in some ways, but it does make for a depressing movie in other ways. Like a kind of a joyless movie.
This is true. You could also argue that it's maybe laid on a little thick in the return.
You could argue that. You could argue that.
I make it seem like I'm pulling out a strand of like an angle, but like you can't miss this if you watch this movie. It's a lot of what they talk about.
You will not go into the movie and miss the fact that Odysseus is suffering quite a bit.
I feel like you blessedly do not have the kind of internet algorithm where you like saw a bunch of stuff about like how Ralph Fiennes got so ripped for. I did. And let me tell you, a lot of the interviews he did about it were like, I didn't want to get ripped. I was trying to look old and ropey.
Of course
not. But let's talk about all the main performances. I'm curious what you thought of Fiennes, Binoche, and it's their third collab, those two. They were in a Wuthering Heights adaptation in the early 90s together. They're in The English Patient, of course. And I guess that Pasolini was like, I had asked once he cast him, was like, who should play Penelope? And Fiennes like, Juliette Binoche, obviously. Like, who do you think we should cast? Charlie Plummer plays Telemachus. Should I say Telemachus in front of you today, or should I keep going with Telemachus? You think?
You should go with Telemachus. I like Telemachus better.
I cannot believe I reverted to Telemachus on one of these episodes. Pretty embarrassing. Anyway, performances. What'd you think?
I do kind of think that Ralph Fiennes' ripped old man body will be my canonical image of Odysseus. in my head now.
Really?
It was quite. It was just very striking and very, very embodied.
After all the work you've done, after all your interests, like this is what it takes to overtake your mental image of Odysseus.
There's like a moment in the poem that's in the return too, where he gets goaded by the suitors into getting in a fight with, and the poem is with another beggar, and in the return is with, I don't know, some kind of bodyguard. I don't know, from this
Some
bouncer
big old dude, yeah.
But there's definitely a moment in the poem where he like throws off his cloak, and the suitors see his like how ripped he is. It's like, that old man is jacked. He's gonna kick his ass. It's a funny moment, and I don't know. I think that you're trying to get something weird about this character, that he's both like old and weathered and has suffered quite a bit, and still has this really like deep underlying strength, and it does lead to a kind of weird looking body.
You're saying he's the original old man strength character?
Yes, definitely.
Wow. I had some question later that was just like, do these actors need to be this jacked? Like what? Like is this just Hollywood vanity? But what you're telling me is like textually, kind of yeah.
I don't know about the like extras. I don't know about generally the amount of the costuming of the film. We're all kind of wearing like half tunics and showing most of our chest the whole time. I don't know whether everyone needed to be jacked. Odysseus, yeah. I think there's some good reasons to want him to be a strong guy.
I don't know if this is something that like Fiennes is doing on his own, or if it's just the way the rest of the movie like interacts with him. But like I think of someone who's really, really good at playing like over the top and having fun doing so. Grand Budapest Hotel, Voldemort.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also really good at making small little gestures really pop. Mm-hmm. I think what he's doing in the new like 28 Days Later films is like unbelievable. I know you probably have not seen those. He plays a British captain on his own who's like built this temple out of skulls. He's a doctor, and there's like all this like, is he a mad scientist or isn't he? And he really like, you think you're gonna like meet the devil when you meet him, and he like really brings it way down so that all of his like small little quirks end up really wonderfully accentuated. In this movie, he's like maybe just like a little like it's just kind of just haunted and like really haunted. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for like a little bit more maybe dimensionality.
There's a lot of face acting in the movie. There's a lot of like, let's stare into Ralph Fiennes' eyes for a while, and he will try to convey that he's thinking about something terrible or is experiencing something painful.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I realized that what it reminded me of from his performances is he did a version of Shakespeare's Coriolanus that he directed and starred in, and that's what it reminded me most of, is like a very high-powered Shakespeare performance where clearly the actor is doing a lot with incredible source material, and it still might not add up to a performance that you particularly, I don't know, you can like appreciate. I mean, do we still call things good, bad around here?
I'd love to. What do you think?
I think it's a kind of good, bad experience.
Yes.
Like this is clearly you're doing a great job. It's awesome.
100%. You can't look at anything he's doing and being like, and say that it's not haunted or it's not, didn't take a lot of work. It did.
Right. But then it might not add up to a movie that you want to watch. Yes.
Yeah. I almost wonder, jumping ahead, like if there were more moments in the performance that played on the bowstringing moment. I think the bowstringing moment in this movie is really interesting. Because it's not what Damon does in the Nolan Odyssey, or like what, Kirk Douglas did in the 57 Ulysses, where I mean, Damon does this like big, like you got to do this crazy bend with the knee. Like you got to put your whole body into it. And in this movie, he kind of like, I don't know, like turns it against his body and puts it inside his foot and does this like big long like breath that almost kind of makes it seem like he has. It's of course an amazing act of physical strength, but like he has to go to a place mentally, like he has to open up his whole chest and like everything he's been through and his mind. It's a meditative act almost.
Yeah. That was a beautiful moment, I thought. I really, really liked that. And he heats it up over the fire too first. So there's a sort of like, I love that shot of him kind of like hooking the bow around his foot.
Yeah.
And then, you see the kind of like, you see those old man chest muscles, like kind of like rippling, but not. But then in the end, it looks easy. The kind of like hooking of the string over the bow looks like a kind of like effortless act, and just making it into a question of, or like a performance of technique and focus and sort of invisible strength rather than whatever the suitors are doing as they just try to force it.
Right.
I think it's a really nice way to shoot that particular moment.
And I wondered if there were ways in which maybe if I were pitching things I wanted to see in the Fiennes performance about like, what about other ways in which he like, he's blocking all these things out. He's trying not to relive this trauma, but like more times where like, what if he had to go to a place mentally in order to access something to come home, in quotes.
Yeah. The other scene that I really liked, where I thought that the acting and the face acting kind of added up to something more than just a performance, was when he and Juliette Binoche have that first Odysseus Penelope conversation around the fire.
Yep.
And it's a brutal conversation. You really like, this film does not dance around, I think, that much her recognizing him as a kind of like, I think it's pretty obvious that she recognizes him, and
for sure
the fact that there's a lot that they're not acknowledging to each other. There's a lot of, I feel like they're really trying to kind of both hurt each other and like figure out something about each other in that conversation. And there, I think you get such nice shots of just faces that are expressing pain, that are like going inward and conveying that there's just a lot that's going on between these two people that on the surface would not necessarily be visible.
All in firelight.
Yes.
There's that moment where she, even though I agree with you, I think it says Ivy, she recognized him. She keeps referring to like her husband in the third person.
Yes.
And she's like, so did my husband rape and murder? And like I don't want to like tell people like how to do their relationships. Typically, I think if someone's like, did my husband rape and murder? Like you want to say no. But he does not.
Yes.
He says nothing. But I mean, I think that's a particularly like effective nadir of his sadness, but also a good. This movie is pretty. It's trying to take it pretty far with how evil and brutal the suitors are.
Yeah.
And just sort of like by virtue of them just being here with their lust and their bloodlust and all this stuff, they're just like, raping and killing and stealing from people around the castle. And I think back to the Odysseus in Nolan's version, seeing Troy fall and seeing all the acts of war and kind of like being frozen and having kind of a like, what did I do here moment, but being very separate from all the acts being committed in Nolan's one. And when he says nothing, when she says, did my husband like rape and murder? I think there kind of is this implication of like, if you've been close to like men at war or men at their worst, like there are some of these suitors who are like nice, quote unquote nicer than the other ones, but like you're pretty party to it. And so is Odysseus, I think this movie suggests.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, doesn't she say something too that's like, you know, why do men fight wars? Why do they put us through this? Like, why? It is a pretty loaded question.
Yeah.
The suitors, well, I was trying to think earlier this week, what do you have to do as a filmmaker or as a storyteller to make the killing of the suitors at the end of the Odyssey something that's palatable to modern audiences? It's something that in the poem is clearly meant to be a kind of heroic act, but it does feel pretty grounded in a like value system that is hard to wrap your head around as a modern reader.
Yeah.
It is like pretty, not just because it's not just like you're killing one person, just like killing a ton of people, some of whom are, you know, some of whom are clearly really like awful, some of whom are pretty sympathetic actually. But it's also just the fact that because it's Odysseus, it's not just a question of strength, but also a question of cleverness. And I think there's something really disturbing to people about, you know, this kind of massacre through tricking people, basically tricking people to not having weapons. And the Nolan one obviously sort of gets around it a little bit by making it much more of a fair fight.
Yes.
But this one decidedly does not.
No. I was going to ask you what you think the curviest curveball of this adaptation is. And I was going to suggest, and you can feel free to disagree, but Antinous, who's played by the Dutch-Tunisian actor I had never seen before, Marwan Kenzari, really could not be more different than what Pattinson was doing or what Anthony Quinn was doing in that 50s one. What do you make of that character in this one?
He's still pretty evil, but very noble at the same time. And he's not
showy.
Not showy. It's not as though he's you know, not trying to kill Telemachus and generally saying nasty things.
Yeah.
He's not like I mean, you have some of these suitors in The Return are so young. They're like Telemachus's age.
Right.
They're like really young guys. And he's clearly one of the more mature ones who's not necessarily running around and like directly torturing the citizens of Ithaca.
Right.
And then at the end, you know, he has such a kind of like weirdly noble death.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, even right up to the death, it's like kind of shocking. Like when Odysseus opens fire on the room, he does not take cover.
No.
He just pours himself another glass of wine and starts wandering around like, well, if this is it for me, and if this is all for the benefit of the queen, like, well, what a horrifying display she shall receive, and I will try to remain above that, like, up until my final moments.
It really treats his kind of proposal to her as a more serious option.
Yeah.
That, like, if you reject, the only alternatives are, you know, you choose to be with me, and it obviously comes with some significant compromises. Or you don't, and that does mean that your husband is going to mass murder everyone in front of you.
Yeah.
And if you don't appreciate that that's the choice you're making, then I will just have to, put that on display for you.
It's a really good performance by Kenzari too, because he has like very like sad, he kind of puppy dog eyes, but then he like does just like little kind of half smiles that make him seem like very cunning. And he's not as like jacked as everybody else who's running around. He kind of like, I don't know, seems to carry some suggested wisdom with him. It's a good performance. But I made you answer mine first. What for you? What's the most like distinct angle taken in this movie?
So Laertes, Odysseus' father, shows up in this film briefly, not at
Yeah.
all in the Nolan Odyssey. And he sort of shows up in one scene and seems to have dementia and then is dead in the next time he appears.
He says that he really likes stones.
He loves
And
the
then
stone. It's so beautiful.
He's also the only one in the movie with the Greek accent, which I thought was pretty funny.
And then, yeah, Telemachus is like, oh, I just need you to tell me whether I should go look for my dad. And he's like, oh, you don't have a dad. How sad. It was weird. It's probably like too inadvertently funny for something that I think was meant to be quite dark.
It's
But
not a good performance, or it's not a well positioned performance, unfortunately.
and I'm just not sure I don't know exactly what they were going for with that entire kind of subplot about Laertes and Laertes' death. It seemed to me that they wanted to add some kind of realism to Penelope coming to make this choice of the suitors, and um, yeah, I didn't. It seemed like if the movie could have done without it.
In Nolan's version, is she making Odysseus's death shroud, or is she still making Laertes' death shroud?
I think I don't remember if it's mentioned.
Okay. Maybe I just
Yeah.
wrongly assumed she's literally making the garment that admits her husband is dead, but I can't imagine that's what's in the Odyssey. In the Odyssey, it has to be the grandfather's Laertes'.
In the poem, it's Laertes. She's
Yeah.
making his death shroud, and then in the last book of the Odyssey, Odysseus goes to Laertes and reunites with him, and then all of the fathers of the suitors come and are banging down the door, and they're like, "You killed all of our sons. We're gonna kill you." And then Laertes kills Antinous' father, and then Zeus and Athena just stop the whole conflict, and they say, "Nope, home is over. Odysseus wins. Everyone else go home."
Wait, this is a real dumb question. Is that where Deus Ex Machina comes from? No,
It's not, but it is
It's an
definitely
example.
a prime example of it.
Wait, we didn't get around to Binoche. You want to talk about someone who might not need more than face acting? She's one of the great I have a secret lean toward me actors of
Yes.
the last 40 years.
It's hard, I think, to talk about the core actors of the movie without talking about all of the actors in the movie, because it's such an uneven movie.
Crazy disparity.
They're just Fiennes and Binoche are so good at what they're doing. There is this kind of core, I think, of 3 or 4 really interesting actors that you've never heard of before.
Yeah.
But that I had to look up the woman who plays Eurycleia, the nurse.
Oh, yeah. And what did you
Yeah.
find?
She is this very, very experienced Spanish actor. She was in this Buñuel film in the 70s, and seems to have quite a career in Spanish films. And she was just super good at playing this nurse character who's both really something kind of heartwarming about her reunion with Odysseus, but also she's bloodthirsty and is just cannot wait to see what's going to happen to the suitors. And
It's
just
true.
her crazy face in the background when she's getting excited. Loved that. So there's a core of those kind of actors too.
This is
that are
Angela
really good.
Molina you're talking about.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on with her too, because I feel part of the Odysseus sponge bath is a little lusty there too.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you have the full ensemble.
the suitors are a little like HBO's Rome seed team.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. It was HBO's Rome. 100%. I was like,
seed team dudes.
Because I kept thinking about Game of Thrones for a while, and I was
Yeah.
like, no, it's not quite Game of Thrones. It's like, wait, that's what this is.
Yeah.
This is HBO's Rome.
Yeah, we were both joking beforehand of like, this movie does smack of, I think it cost like $20 million. Like it was very much a theatrical movie that money was spent on, but it has a little bit of made for the BBC.
Yeah.
Patina to it, both because of the like, cast members like 6 through 20 gets pretty gamey. And there's something about the thing that really made me think made for the BBC is like the sets are too big for the number of people in the shots a lot of times.
Yeah.
Now you could say that like thematically that works nicely because they're depicting this island, this kingdom as a place where like the royals still look fairly poor by some of like the standards we might think of royalty, and like the island is dying. I think there's a really effective thing of like them like slaughtering the piglets and the just that there's no future here. We're gonna eat tonight and we're gonna run out of food if Odysseus doesn't come back and set things right. But yeah, sometimes there is just like, we just sort of set up the camera and the castle was big, but we only had like 4 extras.
Or sort of like, British actors want to go to Corfu for a couple of months to have a vacation, and this is a great excuse to do that.
I feel like we still did not quite give Binoche her due, though. Your point is well taken about the rest of the cast being like nowhere close to their league, but I think she's really good as Penelope.
She's really good. And I think that she's capturing something about the Odyssey and about Penelope's character in the Odyssey that is really important, but I don't really think the Nolan film does a great job with. I mean, Nolan has Anne Hathaway sort of give her kind of angry expository speech about why it would be difficult to be a woman ruler.
Yep.
But I think what the return and what Binoche is doing with that character is showing how a woman wields power through ambiguity in a context where when you try to nail down what her role is, she's going to be treated as a wife or as a mother or as something that will limit her. But when you keep the situation ambiguous, and you refuse to name it, you refuse to name what's going on, to say that like she's the one who is running Ithaca, when you kind of like string the suitors along, when you don't acknowledge your husband, even if you recognize him, like there's a lot of like capturing the way that you need this situation to remain ambiguous. Once it resolves into something, it's not probably going to be a situation that you like. It'll be, or at least you want to think long and hard about what version of this situation you want to resolve into. And the only way to stop, to slow it down, is just keep this ambiguous situation going.
I think that's such a great point, and the only thing I would add to it is Pasolini gives her something that Nolan does not give Anne Hathaway, which is just time. I mean, her last 20 years have been defined by waiting, so like let's see her continue to take her time. And in some ways, building a character, because I was complaining about how Nolan wrote the Penelope character as like it's a little box ticky. You already you identified the moment where it's like, well, I have to do something in service of the Penelope character. Here's her speech.
Right.
But these things aren't always about script equity. Like building a character can be, or dialogue equity, I should say. Building a character can also be done through giving a great actor a whole bunch of angles to express different subtle emotions. And as you say, like a level of implacability that makes thematic sense. And you can build a performance through silence this way, to the extent that like the Penelope character in The Turn is way deeper than the one in Nolan's Odyssey.
No, I think that's right. And this is something that's true of the poem as well, and true of so much literature, that we don't really give silence its due. We always see silence as, you know, either being silenced or being written out of the story or being marginal to the story. But if we like pay attention to characters who are not always saying what they're doing, there's a lot that's going on there that's very rich, and that might not actually be happening if they were forced to say what it is that they're doing and be really explicit about it. It would at least be much less interesting.
Is Telemachus one of the least forgiving roles that a young actor can take on? Because I feel like Charlie Plummer is doing his best here, but it's still just like, oh, this guy sucks.
I couldn't do Charlie Plummer. I really couldn't. He looked like a church youth group camp counselor. Yeah. He really,
It's a very manicured beard. Yeah.
But like clearly both of these films illustrate why it's a really hard art.
Yeah, because you're just wandering around being like, Mom, gosh! And then Dad comes home and it's like, Dad, what do we do? It's hard. It's difficult.
You gotta be convincingly immature without being completely annoying.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There should be some sense of maturing or growth or something. And a hard thing about The Return is that Telemachus goes on his little voyage.
Yeah.
And you don't see it. And he comes back and it's not totally clear that it's affected him in any way.
Spoiler, skip ahead 30 seconds if you're about to watch this movie. A big take in the movie is him beheading Antinous against his mother's wishes. And it's just like, oh, well, maybe a take of this version could be that like this like breaks their trust in their family and their line, and look what hell the husband has brought home with him.
Yeah.
And then like 2 seconds later, he's just like, Mom, I gotta go away again. And he's like very happy, and they're like smiling at each other. And it's like, this is very jarring.
Yeah. No, they do the nice sort of father-son competition. Or I don't know. Telemachus is trying to string the bow, and Juliette Binoche is like, just give it to your father.
Yeah.
Real like, yes, really, really putting him in his place in a pretty embarrassing way.
No monsters in this movie, obviously.
Yeah.
No gods either. I don't think any gods even talked about. Am I wrong about this? Does anyone even mention
I was trying to remember that. If it was, I think in that kind of other firelit conversation where those two young guys are talking about the Trojan War, and Fiennes just keeps kind of like head in his hands saying, no, wasn't that good. The Trojan War sucks. No, everything you've heard is wrong.
Yeah.
Something about, maybe there was a god that slipped in there.
So I guess I could say like one, just like, what do you think of adapting any part of the Odyssey that is like really the Odyssey, but like no gods even mentioned? And like, I guess what would you, in terms of you talked earlier about like, what are the things you're most interested in there? If you were going to do an adaptation, do you feel like you would do no gods? All gods? Half gods?
All gods.
Oh, yeah, would you do all gods?
Every god.
Hephaestus is just on the ship, like, banging away more gods who weren't even there.
Yes. Has there ever been a good movie? Has there ever been what are the effective representations of God or gods in film? Has there ever been one? Like personified representations, like an actor playing a god or gods?
Honestly, Disney's Hercules might be the best. I mean, what are other options? Yeah, like Clash of the Titans, Wrath of the Titans, bad.
The one that I came up with was I was remembering the Wishbone Odyssey. Do you recall this?
Tim, I have a whole segment about Wishbone coming up.
Oh, good. Well, I'll say that.
That was the, I'm trying to get home to you and do a good podcast, right? I'm trying to get home
You
to
knew.
Ithaca, and then Calypso's Island is Wishbone for me. And I'm just like, what if I maybe put 90 minutes into Wishbone trivia questions for
I cannot
Tim?
wait. I cannot wait. So for now, we'll just say that in the Wishbone Odyssey, Poseidon is an old bearded man who comes up out of the ocean and like is yelling at the
He's
dog.
huge. I watched this the other day. When's the last time you seen it?
I had to go back in order to make this point and
I remember
remind
being
myself
very
exactly
scared.
how large. It's that same. I mean, there's only like so many actors in the Wishbone ensemble. A very familiar guy.
You recognize him from other stuff?
There's only like a dozen actors in the Wishbone ensemble.
Wow.
You recognize them all eventually.
Okay.
Point being, I don't know that it's possible to do
Zeus
a good
in
job
the
of
movie.
representing gods, personified gods in a movie. I think that the Nolan movie did just about as good a job as you can of doing that with Zendaya as this kind of like ambiguous goddess. I really
Characters
like
who don't
that.
even have gods on their mind, though? Are we losing something a lot there?
What I think is interesting about the Odyssey specifically, as you know, compared to all kinds of other Greek literary works, Odyssey is not as the gods are not as central in the Odyssey as they are in like the Iliad, for instance. In the Iliad, you have gods who are literally fighting with each other, fighting the Trojan War alongside human beings, taking up an enormous amount of dramatic space in the poem. In the Odyssey, you have conversations between Zeus and Poseidon and Athena. You have a fair amount of conversation between Athena and Odysseus. And that's about it. And I think that part of what the Odyssey is about the transition from a heroic world somewhere in the distant past where the gods were really, really directly involved with the lives of human beings who were their direct descendants. They're like children. They appeared to them and talked to them and fought with them and had children with them and all of this. And whatever world it is that the original audience of the poem lived in and that we live in, where we don't see gods, directly interacting with us. And I think that the Odyssey is part of what it's interested in is how do we get from one world to another world, and how do we get from this world where the gods are such a big presence to the world that we live in. And I guess I would want to, if I could, I don't know, will into existence a film that was only taking the gods as an Odyssey adaptation that was only taking the gods as its focus. Somehow it would try to represent this transition from a world in which the gods are a huge presence to a world in which the gods have become far in the background or like more personalized. Like Athena and Odysseus talk to each other, but nobody else really like sees her when that's happening, or it becomes much more like a bit more like what the Nolan film chooses to do with it. We have the gods in the background. We know that they're causing something, but their direct presence is lessened.
I really like
How
that.
you do that, I have no idea.
That's okay. I still like the answer. Can we, before we move on to like some truly ridiculous
Wishbone.
What's the story, Timbo, on what you like? Your
was
final.
really good.
Thank you.
That was really good.
on what you thought of the return. Anything else we need to get off our chest?
Yeah.
Where will this, besides defining your mental image of Odysseus's body forever, where will this live in how you think about the Odyssey and adaptations going forward?
Like I said, a good bad movie. I will definitely think about the bow stringing. I will definitely think about Fiennes and Binoche around that fire. I really like the sense of place in this movie. Just the like bugs and birds chirping in the background, and how I can immediately tell, oh, we're absolutely in Italy or Greece.
The rocks, the waves.
Yeah. So it will I think I will retain from it that sense of a film that really set out to capture the deep embeddedness in a particular place that is a big part of the Odyssey and the kind of small scale everyday life elements of that poem. But I don't know, the joylessness of it makes me kind of not want to revisit it.
I think for my part, I think it's like at times it tries to be very sharp elbowed in terms of like how mean and brutal things are, while also being like pretty methodical. So that like when there is, I gotta say, like for as jacked as Rafe got, like a lot of the action's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's one spot where they really try to do like a frame rate thing where he's getting charged by those two guys, and it looks very bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I will probably think like you. I think I'll think of the Odysseus and Penelope, and I really like that final scene of breaking through to like where their bed is, as a more sort of like private, less palatial. I like with Telemachus finally out of the goddamn way. These two old people thinking about how they can possibly start their life together again after what they've been through. I thought was very touching.
Do you think that, I know you were talking 2 episodes ago about kind of like online controversy around the Odyssey and people like how it should be accurate to what Bronze Age Greece was actually like, and the armor needs to be da da da. Do you think that like
He's
a little
not
bit
real? It's not his number.
I kind of feel like if you want that, then like certain parts, like watching the credits to this movie, they like went to the loom museum in some tiny Italian town and like rented loom equipment and like weaving equipment or like borrowed it, and the amount of like focus on like making a kind of like realistic looking loom and weaving practice, that's something that felt very BBC to me, and also is like, this might be, if like, is this what you want? Like, do you actually want this to be super realistic? Because you might find that doesn't actually look like what you think it does.
Yeah, or that like the violence doesn't like make sense to your sense of justification at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be kind of horrifying.
Right. I think this discourse has been like a shining example of people like saying that they want something that they definitely don't want because they haven't thought about like what that is. And maybe this movie is like a little glimmer. This movie that like played in art houses and people were like, yeah, that's pretty good. And it's slow and they really paid attention to some stuff and it's kind of disturbing. And then it's really just about like how you put a marriage back together in your 60s.
Yeah.
Is that what the white nationalists and the transphobes want, Tim? No.
I'm sure it's not.
I'm sure it's not. It is. You know what else? Another way I think it'll be giving what they want. They don't know what they want. Is it's just very British. When everyone's just like, I don't like how they talk. It's like, what do you? So you want it British? Because I know you don't want it ancient Greek.
No.
Okay. Wait, I have 2 more silly questions. Do you think you have a better shot of stringing Odysseus' bow or making anything on a loom, Tim Lundy?
Ooh, that's a very nice question. I feel like I could learn to do the loom. You mean just like without any? It would. I think I could probably learn to do the loom faster than I could become physically capable of stringing the bow.
I think I would be more frustrated by the loom because I would be like,
Yeah.
well, people do it all the time. And then I would, somehow get my hands caught in it. And
People do it all the time.
it would be easier for me to admit I'm not strong enough to string the bow.
Yes, right. Oh, yeah. Only one person can do this, but like every woman in this entire ancient culture can do the loom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've somehow like handcuffed myself to it and made a giant ball of yarn. If you had to set up a sort of challenge or test for a group of people you did not want to pass the test, a la stringing Odysseus's bow, something only you could do, what would you pick?
It's like the modern version of the forgot your password questions.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm the only one who could know the make and model of my first
Anderson
car.
Wolverines.
Nobody else knows my mother's maiden name, and there's no way to find out.
No.
This is a hard question for me because I don't think about myself as an exceptional person.
I think you're exceptional, though. I really do. I was like, how do I introduce him? Like, I love, he's the smartest person I know. He's amazing. I love him. Except for that time he told me I didn't understand the Odyssey in that bookstore. We went to California Pizza Kitchen afterward or whatever.
Yeah. And you remember this so much better than I do. I don't remember this at all.
I've seen you measure pancake batter very, very meticulously. This dish you make?
I can make pancakes I make probably like 20 different versions of pancakes these days.
Oh, perfect.
I like that one. That's a good one.
Okay.
You
like,
mean just measuring? Or I'm gonna say the entire process of like
That's fine.
No one is gonna make a pancake like I can.
You say make variant 16 and they can't do it. They make 14. Okay. We usually do a segment called Truth or Trivia. Today it is all Wishbone trivia.
Yeah.
What's the story, Wishbone? What's this you're dreaming of? Such big imagination on such a little part. What's the story?
People know what Wishbone is? It was a show that ran on PBS from 1995 to 1997. I memorized all this from the Wikipedia article earlier. There are 50 episodes across 2 seasons. There was a movie that later appeared on Showtime, Tim, in which Wishbone did 3 O. Henry westerns or something. It was a
Dog Days of the West.
Hell yeah, brother. And Wishbone was a dog, Sokka's a dog. He would go, there would be like a modern day thing in Oakdale with his owners and the friends or whatever, and then there would be half of it would be classical literature where Wishbone played the protagonist. People know about Wishbone. Do you remember what happens? Would you remember what the Oakdale story is in the Odyssey episode? And it's okay if not. We're not even to the trivia part yet.
Wishbone is kidnapped somehow. Possibly some nice woman who wants to take him in.
The craziest part about the episode is the first 15 seconds. and then Joe and David and Sam find him. It's David's little sister apparently took Wishbone to show and tell.
Yeah.
And then puts him in a wagon and takes him to the woods, and you're like, oh, this is the whole Odyssey. And then they're Emily, you can't take him to the woods. And so that's resolved in about the first.
So that's just that's the Calypso bit. That's immediately okay. And then there's more after that. Okay.
The whole rest of it is more. They're in the woods and there's a big tree, and this guy comes out on his 1995 cell phone and he says, "I'm Mr. King, and we're gonna bulldoze down this tree to put in a shopping center." And the kids are like, "You can't do that." And then they get Joe's gorgeous mom involved. Something I never thought at the time, I gotta say. And their neighbor Wanda. And they start a petition, and then the kids go talk to city council about all the reasons they can't put in a tasty Oasis fast food chain where this tree used to be.
And this is how is this the Odyssey?
Tough to say. The developer's name is Mr. King. So there's a kingdom on the line. I
don't remember that part at all. I do remember this first part where David's little sister has kidnapped Wishbone, but I do not remember the rest.
The part where Poseidon is destroying Odysseus's raft, Wishbone is being lifted up on a bulldozer that's about to take down the tree. That's pretty one-to-one, no?
The Wishbone writers had a great time.
They really did.
They're a really creative bunch.
Mo
Rocca, a Wishbone writer. Did you know that?
I certainly did not. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim, these are multiple choice questions. What is the name of the real estate company that wants to bulldoze the tree and put in a tasty oasis? Which, by the way, David, for like a few seconds, is like, tasty oasis. That's pretty, that's pretty good. Your options are A, Demont Properties LLC, B, Suter Development Corporation, or C, Lotus Industries.
Ooh. Suter.
Very good. And
Nice.
again, good job, writers.
That is good. So it's like the tree is kind of, so it's about replacing whatever the
tree
I
is
don't know what it's
Odysseus.
about. The tree.
Yeah, no, I think you're on. I think you're on as close to a right track as there is.
It's something about like accepting some inferior substitute for what is old and familiar and proper.
That's exactly right. And part of Sam's testimony to the city council is about how the tree has all kinds of stories. Storytelling is really important.
Yeah.
Which notable change from the Odyssey does this Wishbone episode engage in? A.
The dog. Odysseus is a dog.
Not an option. Penelope is Odysseus' sister. B. The Cyclops is a giant dog. Or C. The bow is already strung during the final challenge.
Yes, it's certainly C. It cannot be A because Wishbone would never shy away from an opportunity to have a dog and human woman in romantic relationship.
It's so true. He's like in her bed at the end and she's just like, I'm so glad you're home. Speaking of Telemachus being just like a nightmarish role to also see the like 22-year-old guy like pull the sheet off the dog's head and be like, Dad! This poor guy from like the Dallas Community Playhouse.
But yeah, definitely the dog can't string the bow himself.
This is very true, which I mostly bring up because it's a very funny scene because then all the like human men who are trying to do it, the bow is so tiny when they're trying to shoot the arrow, and then it's like very much a wishbone-sized bow.
Right. So they're just struggling with it. That's it. Right. So it's not the string of the bow, but they're just struggling to even use this thing. Yeah.
It's kind of the reverse of the like, it's almost a given that Odysseus is the only one who can get it through the axes. These guys are clanging on the axis over and over again.
That's right.
You are evoked when Poseidon comes out of the sea. What does Poseidon say to Odysseus when he wrecks the raft? A, you have insulted my oceans, Odysseus. B, I never liked you much, Odysseus. Or C, my son the Cyclops sends his regards.
I want to say B.
Yeah. I never liked you much, Odysseus. Really
so
boiling it down.
I mean, you have to, because I feel like there's no explanation given in the Wishbone for why Poseidon is mad at his dog.
You got to cut to the chase.
Doesn't like him. Not everyone likes dogs.
This effect is costing us dozens of dollars a minute. We have got to wrap it up. Can you name, last one, a Wishbone episode engaging with a text older than the Odyssey?
Ooh, that's interesting. So there's the one where they're doing the kind of like folk tales, the Anansi the Spider folk tales. Is that older than the Odyssey?
The written versions are certainly not older. My hint was going to be like, there's a few that could be older.
Could be older. Yeah, like the folk tale. But there's one that's definitely older.
Seems like a little bit of bullshit.
So we're the question. Wait. Oh, okay. You think that there is one, but you don't believe that it's actually older.
Well, yeah. Just because I think historically dating such a tale is also like a little silly. But,
yes.
Well, let me just say, 1001 Arabian Nights could also fall in the Anansi category of, if we say that these are
tales that
actually
could be really, really
taken
old
from Sanskrit or whatever, they could be really old in the Odyssey. It's also Greek myth.
Also Greek myth. Oh, there's the like a Labors of Hercules one, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is like, I think, a few years before the Odyssey.
That one came out a couple years earlier. I don't know. That just seems pretty, like, for stories that are both going to be like, I don't really know what our source for the Labors of Hercules stories are exactly, like a written source. They're all based on stories lost to the mists of time.
Yep.
Yeah, that one's good. Golden apples, holding the earth for Atlas.
Yes. Right. We similarly are doing the like giant guy effect on Atlas. It was very striking as a young person. Wait, did I close all these tabs? What were the weirdest ones? There were some where I was like, that was an episode? Silas Marner?
There are some real weird ones. And there's some like second season ones that I don't remember seeing a whole lot.
Of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
What was the one that I was just like, that's so strange?
A pretty weird one is Faust. They do Faust, and like Wishbone is Faust getting kind of, damned to hell, and it's pretty.
Well, I didn't think it was gonna be like this.
Pretty grave fate for that dog.
Moliere's The Imaginary Invalid, I thought was a weird one. The Purloined Letter.
Purloined, yes.
Yeah, exactly. you knew that one. Panting at the Opera.
Yeah, Phantom of the Opera. Yeah.
Panting at the Opera. Tim, I think that's it.
We reached the end.
I think we've reached the end. I think we're back on Ithaca. It was great to talk to you about this. Thanks for indulging me and all my goofiness.
Thank you for planning a Wishbone themed segment for me.
You're welcome. Anytime.